I hope you're doing well. I wanted to touch on the subject of rentals and what happens when you own a home and you're currently renting it out and you want to put it up for sale. Because I get this quite a bit. El Paso is a big military town. A lot of soldiers come in, they buy, and then they rent for several years. And at some point, they decide to sell. And so they usually have a tenant in the property. Now, that can be a little tricky. And before you decide to put it on the market, I want to first say that it's a great thing that you invested in real estate. It's a great thing that you used your VA entitlement because so many veterans don't. They think I'm only going to be here 3 years. It's not worth buying. You know what? Real estate is always worth buying, guys. Okay. You buy real estate and wait. You don't wait to buy real estate. So that being said, now, if you currently have a tenant in the property, I really hope that you have a property manager. I've had several clients in the recent past that don't have a property manager. They property manage it from a distance, and I go into the property and it's a mess. A worst scenario or worst case that I had, the tenant had been there for several years. She had 7 cats in the home. Yes. And it smelled like it. It was a 2-story home. The second floor, has the wood plank underneath the carpet. And when we pulled back that carpet after they moved out, it was completely disgusting. The homeowner had to paint, recarpet, treat the floors, and do quite a bit of extensive repair. And it cost him a pretty penny. Luckily, he made a very good amount of money and it worked out in the end. But in the interim, I had to basically operate as the foreman, coordinating all the repairs, getting quotes, and getting all that done. Now, uh, that's usually not part of what a realtor is supposed to do, but because this was a repeat client, I did it for him. But a lot of times, people complain that their property manager didn't do anything and they were paying him 10%. Well, guess what? You interview people, you get good references, and you go with somebody that can update you on a regular basis. So that aside, what happens if you want to sell? So I had a client reach out, say, I want to sell. I said, okay, when is the lease up? And the lease isn't up until December, right? And this is July. And I said, okay, so what happens? So if you decide to sell now and somebody does buy the property, whoever the new owner is has to continue to honor the lease. Okay. Now, because of that, most people who want to buy are going to want to live in the property. Now, if those buyers are either VA or FHA, those two loans require that the buyer be moved into the property within 60 days. So if you've got a tenant in there for several months, that's not even a feasible option. Now, if you say, well, I'm not going to sell to a VA or FHA buyer, well, you've just limited your market tremendously. Okay. So the other thing is, let's say you also have to check to see in the contract, because I know a lot of people who lease it themselves and they create their own contract. They go online and they download a form. Okay. The problem with those forms is that they're usually not very clear, right? They're very general contracts. The Texas Association of Realtor contract is very thorough. It's actually longer than the purchase contract. And so it covers absolutely everything. But the important thing to note is to go through the contract and to see when the tenant is required to give access for the owner for when they decide to sell and they want to show it to prospective buyers. Most leases say they have to show it in the last 30 days that they're occupying the property. So if you've got 3 months left on the lease, you can ask the buyer if they're willing to accommodate you, but they're not required to. Okay. Let's say you are still in the last 30 days. Okay. Well, most tenants are not very happy about the fact that they've got to move and that they've got to accommodate all these realtors coming in and out of the house with prospective buyers. So they usually, one, don't have the best attitude, and two, don't usually have the house ready to show. So you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And so it's extremely vital that the house shows in very, very good condition. Okay. If we're going to rate a house as 0, it needs a complete fixer upper, and a 10, it looks like a model. We want it as close to a 10 as possible, because that will ensure that the seller get top dollar the most amount of interest, and hopefully a multiple offer situation. So, for you to rely on the tenant to have the house show ready, always be willing and accommodating, it becomes very difficult. The other thing that we struggle a lot with tenants is that they're not responsive. If we have to schedule through the property manager and they say, well, I've been calling them for 3 days straight and they're not answering, you've just lost a buyer. Most buyers will want to schedule to look at it within a day or in an hour. Sometimes if they're driving the neighborhood and they see a property and they say, I want to go see that, if it takes you 24, 48 hours notice just to show that property, the buyer's going to be like, forget it. I'm not going to go through that trouble, or I'm leaving town by tomorrow. I don't have the time. So you've just shot yourself in the foot because you're, basically at the mercy of the tenant. Now, a lot of people say, well, can't we just show it and say we're going to repair this, or we're going to paint that, or we're going to replace carpet? You can, but buyers normally don't have a very good imagination. Okay. You are basically hoping that the buyer sees the potential of the after and will make an offer based on that. Whereas if you already had it ready, they would be willing just to jump on it and not think twice about it. Okay. So, one of the things that what I've noticed in this is not ragging on property managers. We all have our own specialty, right? But what I've noticed when I've seen homes listed by people who normally just do property management, or the bulk of their business is property management, is that they usually don't advise the seller, or they don't get the seller ready to make sure that the house shows as beautifully as possible. Okay. So if you think about it, if you were out and you wanted to go rent a property and you saw it was kind of so, but it met most of your boxes, then you'll be like, okay, I'm willing to rent it, right? Because it's not a long-term commitment. But if you were looking to buy a property, you're going to want that property to be as nice as possible without having to mess with it at all, right? So when you work in the property management world, the expectation or the preparation that you give the seller tends to not be in the same mindset as if when you want to sell, right? So I've noticed that a lot of these properties don't show well. They're not in the best condition. They haven't really been updated. And so it takes them a little longer to sell, or they don't sell it for, top dollar, right? So, if I go into a property, I've visited several rentals lately. I've gone in and I say, you know what? You can sell it right now as is, the way you have it, but it's only going to get you this much. Now, if you're willing to invest a little bit of money, do paint, carpet, and lighting, you're going to get so much more. So I always present both scenarios to them so that they can see that it's much more beneficial to go one way or the other, right? So I just highly encourage you that if you do decide to sell, you make sure that it's towards the end of the lease. And ideally, the best scenario would be to get the tenants out, get the house cleaned up, and then list it. And if you go through that, even if you've got to make one more mortgage payment, guys, it's totally worth the investment, because the amount of gain that you're going to get from that is going to be so much better. So that's my little 2 cents on properties that are being leased that homeowners want to put up for sale. So if you have any questions, you can always give me a ring or shoot me a text. Thanks. Bye. Little reminder that my business is based on referrals. Without wonderful people such as yourself, I could not keep my business running. So if you happen to know of anybody, friend, family, coworker, neighbor that is interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I would love to give them the best level of personal care. Thanks so much. Feel free to reach out, text, email, or call me. Thanks. Bye-bye.